Hello everybody and welcome to week 3 of the Living Life to the Full training. So happy for you to join us today. We are covering managing bad thoughts today. So this is when you feel low, sad, depressed, and you actually feel like you need to better manage those thoughts because it is possible, because we can control our thoughts. So something to explain before we go into the video is that if you do feel like very depressed, this video is definitely going to be useful for you, and at the same time would recommend that you visit your GP for a chat, because there are other things that you can do as well that would help you and benefit you. So please do bear that in mind. Okay, so hopefully we've got some joiners who've been part of the training in week 1 and week 2. Last week we looked at managing worries, and we looked at how sometimes we can feel like we just can't be bothered. We can't be bothered to do something, and we set ourselves a challenge, so which is what we do on a weekly basis, where we put our new skills into practice. And last week what we decided to do was to do an activity that we haven't done in a while that brings us some joy, and to really notice your feelings when you are doing that activity. And then also to create a plan so that you can incorporate that activity more into your life as you start to build your routine back up that you might have lost when you were feeling worried, anxious, stressed, or depressed and low mood. Because we learned that the less we do, the less we want to do, and we get stuck in a vicious cycle. So if you haven't checked out that video yet, I highly recommend you do so. Everything is saved on our Facebook page. And today we're going to talk about managing bad thoughts. Okay, so the good news is that we don't have to be controlled by our thoughts. And that's a main principle of Living Life to the Full training, is that there are techniques that we can use to overcome the thoughts in our mind. It's just a case of creating awareness, having the tools available, and committing to making that change. And that's in the science. This is something that's been proven, and it's something called cognitive behavioural therapy that is at the heart of these techniques, which is also known as CBT. And it's something that the NHS uses along with other coaches and also counsellors in order to help people who are struggling with anxiety, worry and depression. So there are some worksheets that come with this session, and I will be posting them in our Facebook group so that you'll be able to do the challenge afterwards and put your new skills into practice. Okay, so let's move on. So let's think about bad thoughts and how we can spot bad thoughts, because this isn't easy to do, particularly if we have a lot of bad thoughts or a lot of thoughts in our head. And that's normal. It's normal to think, it's normal to have a level of activity going on in our minds, and it takes time in a stressful world when there's so much going on and so much worry and so much uncertainty. It does take some training to retrain your mind so that we aren't as affected by negative or bad thoughts. Okay, so what I will do is I'll link this list into the Facebook group. So you don't have to remember all of this or rewatch the video each time. You'll be able to find it on there. So what I'm doing is taking you through the different tips. So first of all, this is called a bad thought spotter. And bad thoughts are otherwise known as unhelpful thoughts because they don't really help anybody. It might help you if you're thinking through a problem to understand the negatives, but bad thoughts in terms of they're hanging around and on our mind and they're actually stopping us, they are unhelpful. We need to have a healthy balance of the thoughts in our mind. So the first bad thought spotter is, are you your own worst critic? Are you always beating yourself up about something? And notice if you're doing this. So this might be, you might beat yourself up because you didn't do something that you thought you were going to do, or maybe you missed a deadline, or it could be anything. It could be something that you don't feel worked out well for you, and then you start criticizing yourself. So that means your self-talk in your mind, you're telling yourself that was rubbish, what a disaster, and you're berating yourself as to how bad you are. And sometimes that feels like a committee of critics in your mind. But actually, those beating up yourself is not actually helping you at all. It's very unhelpful. So that is one way of spotting bad thoughts. Are you your own worst critic? How often are you beating yourself up? Something else, the next one on the list is, do you focus on the bad stuff? So throughout our day-to-day lives, we're going on in the community, we're at home, we're taking care of our families, we may be socialising, doing the shopping, etc., etc. Do you feel like when you're walking, let's use the example of walking around the supermarket, do you feel like you're looking around you, taking in the sights, the sounds, and you're thinking, it's almost like you're thinking so negatively and noticing all the bad things, all the negative things about people, the food, it might be the prices, it could be anything. It's, some people describe it as looking at the world in dark glasses, okay? So basically not noticing the positives, only noticing the negatives. Now, this is an unhelpful thought. This is something to spot and something that we can put right so that it becomes helpful, not unhelpful. The next one is, do you have a gloomy view of the future? So do you expect everything to turn out badly? So no matter what it is, it might be something that you've seen on social media, it might be something that you've seen on the TV, it might be linked even to the pandemic, and you just think, nah, it's gonna go wrong. It's impossible. It's gonna turn out really, really bad. And that's your go-to. You go straight to thinking that actually it's not gonna work. There's not really any positivity there or positive outlook at all. It's all negative. Again, that is a way of spotting a bad thought. The next one is a bad thought. It's about, are you jumping to the worst conclusions? Now, this means that when you're thinking about a situation, not only do you expect the future to be gloomy, but you also expect the outcome of a situation to be catastrophically bad. Not just bad, but really bad. And your mind is racing. So for example, the worst conclusions, and we could think about all kinds of examples here. It might be that you're planning to do something outside, and you see on the weather forecast that it's going to be maybe cloudy with some rain, and then you might think to yourself as a bad thought, oh, well, it's going to be a complete disaster, nobody's going to turn up, nobody's going to want to come, when they turn up people are going to be soaked, it's going to be a disaster, let's just cancel everything, cancel. That is called catastrophizing. And that is really unhelpful, and that is a bad thought. And when you know how to find them with your bad thought spotter, you will be able to identify them and manage them to make them more positive and give them less strength in your mind. Okay, so the next bad thought to spot for is, do you assume that other people see you badly? So meaning that it's almost a little bit like, it's kind of like, some people might describe this as a paranoid thought, where they just assume that no matter what they do, where they are, how they're behaving, it could be even online, it could be in person, they just assume that they're disliked or what they're doing is silly, and people will judge them for that. This is a negative thought because we can't mind read. This is a form of mind reading, and that is just not possible. So that's a bad thought. That's unhelpful, because what is the sense? It just doesn't make any sense to assume that other people are going to take you negatively, because we just don't know that. So bad thought to spot, okay? The next one is, do you take responsibility for everything? So this is where there's a negative outcome. Something doesn't go as planned, or it could be you're talking to somebody and the conversation takes a turn and it becomes a difficult conversation, even a conflict. And after that conflict or after that situation, you just take full responsibility for all the bad stuff that happened. Yeah, I'm sorry. It normally comes with a sorry. It normally comes with an apology. But actually, there's no need to take responsibility for things that aren't your problem. They're not your doing. That's unhelpful thinking. You know, be responsible for what you are responsible for, and there's no need to take blame or negativity that actually you weren't responsible for. So another bad thought that has been spotted using our list. And then the last thing on the bad thought spotter is, are you always saying things like should or got to? Okay, notice when you're using these words. Oh, I should be doing this, I should be doing that. In your mind, in your thoughts, how often are you telling yourself that you should be doing something, or you have to be doing something? It happens a lot. Once you start looking out for these bad thoughts and you spot them, you will see how often you're doing this. And the reason it's a bad thought is that it sets completely impossible standards for you. Because if you keep telling yourself, I should, well, it might be that you can never live up to that. It's because you maybe set yourself up to perfectionism. And that just doesn't exist. So next time you tell yourself, I have to or I should do something, really question if you do or should do that thing. Okay, so that's another way of noticing bad thoughts. So that's how we spot them, and I will be putting the worksheet into the Facebook group so that you can either save it on your phone if you would like to, or just refer back to it, or otherwise you might choose to actually write down what the bad thoughts are, and you could even put it into a diary, or you could put it on a piece of paper and put it on the front of your fridge as a reminder. But the idea is that we become experts at spotting our bad thoughts, which are unhelpful. So that's the part about identifying the bad thought. So we have to notice it. We have to realize it's there to take the first step in order to manage that bad thought. And there's a few steps to go through. And again, I will put this onto the Facebook group. But there's actually a series of steps that you can follow to overcome these bad thoughts. And to start off with, it's new and it may seem a little bit tricky. And with time, when you can actually use this bad thought busting technique, you can actually train your mind so that you notice a bad thought when it occurs, and then you can tell yourself the information in the busting program in order to make that thought go away and manage it better. Okay, so the amazing bad thought busting program, the first thing to do is to label it. So we've just learned what the bad thoughts are. So you've noticed one, label it, acknowledge what it is. Are you mind reading? Are you only seeing the negative? Do you feel like you live with dark, gloomy glasses on? Do you feel like other people are criticizing you no matter what you do? So when you notice the bad thought, label it and just say to it, oh, you're just one of those bad thoughts. You're not controlling me. You're not changing how I feel. You're not changing my behavior, because I know what you are. You're bad and you're unhelpful. So you can actually label it. The next thing to do that's really important is to then leave the bad thought. Make it go away. So you could visualize a way of making that thought go away by destroying it in your mind and actually visualize that thought being destroyed. Or else, even with knowing that the thought is unhelpful, let it go, leave it be. And the thing about bad thoughts is they want attention. They absolutely love attention because they can grab it. If you're thinking bad things about yourself, then it can really dominate your mind. So knowing this about bad thoughts, leave it. Don't give it the attention that it's asking. The third thing to do is to stand up to it. So if it won't go away, imagine the bad thought like a bully in your head. And the bad thought is not real, it's imagined. So because we know it's unhelpful, we know it's not real. So it's just a bully. That's all it is. And you can beat them. You can beat a bully in your own mind. Absolutely. So the next thing to do is actually give yourself a break. So when you feel like you're criticizing yourself, when you feel like you're imagining the worst, when you feel like you can only see the negative in the world, when you think that something automatically will turn out bad without any consideration of it turning out good, then give yourself a break and say to yourself, why am I beating myself up? I'm hurting myself here. I don't deserve this. I deserve time off from this relentless bad thought. So make sure that you start taking care of yourself, that you acknowledge that you deserve better than this bad thought in your mind. And think about, what would somebody who you really care about think? Say if you trust somebody enough, you can even actually open up to that person and say, I'm thinking this about myself. What do you think about what I think about myself? And you're highly likely, if not 100% certainty, that the person that cares about you will say, you are being overly negative. There's absolutely no way that people were judging you and thinking bad of you in that circumstance. And that can give you a break and give you a reality check. That even if you don't have somebody to open up to in that way, you could write in a journal, you could write it down, what you're telling yourself, what these negative thoughts are, and then from there, you can actually read it and understand how badly you're talking to yourself, and that understand that you do need a break and that you have got a bully in your mind. So the last part is look at the thought differently. So when you've identified and you've labelled your thought, think about, what advice would you give to your friend? So if your friend was thinking this, what would you say to them? So with great certainty, you would be giving them positivity and reassurance and giving them a perspective, a balanced perspective, not just the bad side, not just the bad thoughts. And that's really, really good for you, because it will help you rationalize, so that when you feel that you're mind reading and you're reading bad things because you think people mind reading bad things because people are talking bad about you, then that, if you think about yourself, what would I say to my friend if my friend was being bullied in her head? You would reassure that person. Also think about it. Will what you're worrying about, the bad thoughts, will they matter in 6 months' time? Will they matter? Because highly likely they won't. Highly likely it means so much at the time. That's why the bully is taking a hold of your mind and you're having these bad thoughts. But actually, really, really think about what I'm upset about today and what's making me feel low today and making me feel sad today. Will that matter in 6 months' time? Most of the time the answer is no, because these thoughts, they come and go. They can dominate for times, but actually, are they really important in your life? Will they still be around in 6 months? No, probably won't, because you will have moved on. People move on, situations change. So that takes some of the power away from that bully of bad thoughts in your mind. Also look at it differently. Either ask somebody or take yourself out of the thought. Write down, how would other people see these thoughts? How would they see it differently? Specifically, what would they see that would be different? Not what would they say to agree to my bad thoughts. What would they say differently that I'm saying? And then you can see the counter argument with the bully, because the bully's trying to take control. The bully wants attention from you in your mind. And then you suddenly start seeing the positive side, which actually helps beat the bully. And then another way of looking at it differently is think about, are you actually thinking about the whole picture or just a small piece of the picture? So when you're thinking about maybe a conversation that you had with somebody, maybe somebody was giving you feedback on something that you did. It might be at work, it might be something that you did, some arts and crafts, it could be some home decoration, anything like that. And somebody came over to your house, for example, and they looked at your decoration in your home and they said, it's really, really nice, but I think you missed a little bit here and you went over the line here. Well, they might be giving you feedback, and might be 90% of that feedback is they really, really like the room. They've said that, but the only thing that you hear is that there are maybe a couple of minor mistakes, and you zone in on that. And so when you're thinking about looking at the whole picture, think about how, am I just focusing on one thing? How narrow am I thinking? If I think about the broader picture, like the entire conversation, not just a small part of the conversation, then it gives you some perspective, it gives you some balance, and it helps beat that bully in your mind. Okay, so what we've done today is we've covered ways of identifying what bad thoughts are, and we've got a checklist, and that checklist will be going onto the Facebook page so that you can do that. And then we've gone through the amazing bad thoughts busting program, step by step, things that you can do yourself as part of your personal development in order to become more positive and have a more healthy mind. So the challenge is to actually use these tools over the next week before our next session, and really commit to this and give it a go. Even if it's just one day, say to yourself, for one day, I'm going to use these tools and help yourself, invest in yourself. So you could either save the tools onto your phone, for example, or you might want to write them out. And it would be really great when you're using the tools to use a notebook or a journal, something like that, to then write down the answers to the questions so that you are able to see the bigger picture, for example. You are able to understand that you're just seeing the negatives. You are able to look at the balance and that actually the whole day's not ruined just because it rained once. And once you've got this written down, then be sure to share your feedback with others. And if you see positivity from using these tools, and pretty much everybody that I've spoken to, that I've worked with who've used these tools have found them to be really, really successful, then please do share our video, share our tools. And it's important that we let you know that the training that we're doing over the 8-week period, it comes from a training course called Living Life to the Full. And you can access this online. It's a free course and it goes into way more detail. And what we're bringing you on a weekly basis is drawing out the main aspects so that you can take those tools. So if you are interested in learning more about cognitive behavioural therapy and tools to help you manage worry, anxiety and depression, then follow the link. I'll link it into the Facebook page, and it's absolutely free to do online. And we do in the future, when we get back to our Get Healthy, Get Working program at the Sanctuary in Castle Vale at Compass Support, we will be delivering the Living Life to the Full training in full. So you'd also have the opportunity to do it then, as well as doing it online. So yeah, definitely get in touch and let us know how you get on, and share with your friends, share with your family, share online how successful it's been for you so that other people can also benefit. And we'd be really, really happy to hear your success stories. As always, if you've got any questions, then please do get in touch. Facebook Messenger is perfect. You can also contact us via the Sanctuary at Compass Support main phone number. Thank you so much for your time and attention today. It's always really, really good to talk to you on these lives. Be sure to comment, say hi if you're watching on the replay. It's been an absolute pleasure. Talk to you next week. Thank you. Bye.